Hi, this is a rant about Blood of Hercules, a book which I hated so much that I'm making a video ranting about it. Before we start, however, a couple of disclaimers. First of all, I hated this book, but if you liked it, I can see some aspects why you would like it. However, if you think the writing is nice, good in this book, is this your first book ever? Have you ever read a book other than this? I don't think so. I'm going to get a little mean, but I've decided to counteract that meanness by not recording the whole thing in one sitting. That's why I may change my appearance a little bit, so don't be freaked out. I reviewed the book for a Polish publishing house because English actually isn't my first language. And I did tell my truth. I hated this book. And a year later, I found out that the book was actually translated and published into Polish. So that's a disappointment, but by a different publishing house. So I guess small miracles. I should mention the fact that the book I got was a copy, as the book was published, self-published. Although at the time the book was picked up by a publishing house, so my copy may be a little different from the one that got published by a publishing house. Is there something else I should mention? Oh yeah, it's not going to be very structured, the video. It will be just me ranting about the book. I hope to make it sound coherent. We'll see. As I've mentioned, English isn't my first language, so excuse my poor pronunciation and maybe some mistakes that I will make along the way. You can, if you disagree with me, you can leave me a comment saying why you like this book. And I think that might be it, actually, when it comes to disclaimers. Yeah, so grab a snack, enjoy the video. So let's dive into the world of Blood of Hercules. It's supposed to be based on mythology, it has nothing to do with it. I don't think the author knows anything about that, but we're going to talk about mythology aspect of it in a different segment. Let's start with the plot. The year is 2090. Titans are killing people, so it's kind of dystopic. And you have Spartans who are what we consider Greek gods, who I think also can be killed by Titans, but they're not even related. Like in the myths, you have Titans and you have gods. Not here. Not here. So the Spartans are divided into Olympians and Chthonics, and while the Olympians are considered to be helpful and honorable, Chthonics are dangerous and cunning, basically evil because of their powers. And to see how much there are 12 houses of Sparta, and the Olympian ones are the house of Zeus, Hera, Athena, Hermes, Poseidon, Demeter, Apollo, Dionysus. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, I'm so sorry. The Polish pronunciations of Greek gods are different than the English ones, as you can probably imagine, because those are two different languages. And the Chthonic houses are of Ares, of Hades, of Artemis, and Aphrodite. The thing is that their numbers are dwindling. They're both the Olympians and the Chthonic houses. They had some losses before this 2090 year. In the past, they had some losses, but instead of uniting, the Olympian houses are still pretty abusive towards the Chthonic houses. To ensure the survival of Spartan blood, so the godly blood, um, the law is passed that all Spartans must be married by age 26, or at least have marriage oaths about. Okay, so they have to get married. But also the Spartans are supposed to marry into the so the Olympians are supposed to marry the Chthonics to dilute the Chthonic blood to lessen the power. So abusing the fact that there's less houses on the Chthonic side instead of uniting as one, because they're all gods, they're all Spartans. But the problem is that female children on the side of Chthonics are very rare, and that makes it very hard to marry those girls because they don't really exist. And that's why you can marry more than one person in this universe. Okay, lazy writing, but who am I to judge? So the thing you need to know is that when you have a god and you have a human and they make a child, the child is a mutt, like a dog. Fun. So you have male mutts and female mutts. If a child is born to two gods, they're an heir or an heiress, right? To look, we have to kind of look at the chthonic situation when it comes to children. So we have Artemis, who has two kids, and one of them is important. It's Charon, Karen, Karen. He's important to the plot, and I'm not going to mention in this fragment that Artemis shouldn't have children because she's a virgin goddess in the myths. I'm not going to do that. Actually, I kind of did, but I'm not going to dive into that yet. And then we have, when it comes to Aphrodite, she has two kids. One of them is Patroclus, who is a male mat, and he's in this book called Patro, like shortened version. So we're going to call him from now on Patro. Then we have House of Hades, who so we had Hades and Persephone, who had a child. They believe it's deceased. Then you have House of Ares, two kids, one of them Achilles and one of them Augustus. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, I hope. So Augustus is the son of Ares and Aphrodite, so he's an heir to the house of Ares. But Achilles is a mat, so it's Ares plus a human. How is that connected to myths? Not at all. It's not connected at all. Myths, I hardly know her. Anyways, let's get to the plot. The thing you need to remember is that when chthonic mats or chthonic heirs use their powers, their eyes turn red, except for Achilles, whose eyes are always red. Okay, so let's get to the plot. The plot is that we have Alexis, who is raised by foster parents who are abusive to her. Then a new child shows up, her foster brother Charlie, who only communicates via sign language, and in a not for some reason, that's not the word I wanted to use. There is a situation in which Alexis fights her abusive parents to save Charlie, and her mother dies, her father is taken into custody, but Alexis also suffers and she cannot hear or see on the right side of her. So the eye is now a different color, like electric blue, and she cannot hear with her right ear. Right? Is it right? Mm-hmm. Right side, okay. Years later, both Alexis and Charlie are homeless. They're living in a park. She still goes to school. He also still goes to school. But there is a test, and for some reason, the bureaucracy of this dystopian world does not have your information as it should. As in, there is no database that would say that, oh, those are your parents, those are your siblings, you were born here, and that's your date of birth. Instead, they sign their name on the exam and they put some blood on it. And we find out that Alexis' blood is toxic, which means that she's at least a Spartan mat. Mat. Yes. I don't know. Is it close enough? The pronunciation is close enough. That must be enough for you guys today. Okay, so she's transported directly from the school, from the exam, into the Colosseum, where there will be a massacre among the other transported Spartan children of age. So we know that she's not, 15, but she acts like she's 12. She's very edgy. I'm going to get to the style, how terrible it is, and how terrible the characters are as well, as in terribly written. Later on, but they're of age, is what you need to know. Alexis survives the massacre, and with her 9 other people, so we have 10 survivors who go to the Crucible, which is some sort of academy school thing, to become full-on immortal Spartans. And her mentors are Patro and Achilles. Achilles is really dehumanized, and which there is a thing I didn't understand in the fandom, let's say. So Achilles wears a muzzle because I think he has some sort of power that makes you do things, like he says something, you do that thing. So he is forced to wear a muzzle. He doesn't do it out of his own choice. um and when I was researching the book to, did I put the stress in the right place? Doesn't matter. When I was researching the book, to kind of decide if I want to read it and review it, um, I found a video where someone actually mentioned the fact that Achilles has the muzzle, and they found it hot. They found it sexy, and I was so lost when I was reading and I found this, description that he is forced to wear this muzzle, because it sounds very dehumanizing. They're treating him like an, wild animal. How is that sexy? You know? I did not mention, but I should probably, what made me kind of, he? Go like this. Hmm. Yes, when I was researching the book, and I found some like description of it, and I on Amazon, and then I read two sentences. It was, "I'm just a girl, and it turns out I'm Hercules." And I thought, okay, obviously you're not Hercules, but maybe it's a, since it's a dystopian world, maybe Hercules is a title of a special role in the military that you're given if you have like some special role to play. And maybe that's what the author is telling me here, that she's not even from the same family line, not legacy of Hercules, because that would be that it's something like a title, a role you play. But I found out that actually no, no, that's, I'm going to get into that, but I feel silly that I actually decided to read this book and review it. It was so bad, guys. I'm not going to read the second one. You cannot make me. No one can make me. I've suffered enough in my life. This would be one of the worst things I could do out of my free will. I'm not doing that. Mm-mm. So coming back to the duo who mentors our main character, um, they hate her because they view her as weak, and they think that she won't survive the first part of the training, so they don't tell her anything. They're not treating her with any kindness, because they feel like, well, she's going to die soon anyways, what's the point in wasting our energy? But she doesn't, so they change their minds along the way. So basically the school is to, mm, the main point is to make you better and more like a god by depriving you of human needs like sleeping, eating, drinking, showering, even. So they're basically losing their minds there, right? Because they're not drinking, they're not sleeping, they're not eating, but they still have to do math, and they still have to do all those different things, and they also do a lot of physical exercising, like they are running, they're climbing up a mountain, they're swimming in the river Styx. So a lot of things are happening. The thing you need to know is that two of the teachers are important. The um, Augustus, son of Ares and Aphrodite, who is the heir to the house Ares, he teaches Latin and lost classical lore, while Charon, the son of Artemis, heir to the house of Artemis, uh, drowns students in the river Styx if they are weak. So that's his role to play, and he's a teacher, professor, or whatever. Yes, that's the important part, because they are unfortunately the main love interest in this book. Terrible people, terrible. What you need to know is that out of the 10 students, I don't even remember any of them, but they have their own powers that come from their godly parents, and we find a couple of them, and all of them, I think, know what maybe not parents, but at least the powers. They know what powers they have, but Alex's doesn't, and she has no clue what her power might be, but I guess she doesn't really care that much because all she cares about is math. She's so different because she likes math and doesn't like boys. Yes, I'm going to get into characters later on so you can see how, with quotes, you're gonna see how terribly written every single person here is. Another thing is that despite Augustus being the nicest Thonic guy ever, he hates Alexis because he thinks she dishonors all female Spartans by being there. The other guy, Charon, kills one of the students during the first run, so that's what we're working with. And then the Alexis climbs to the top of her class. She's really great at maths. She gets better physically, and then she starts receiving death threats, fun, to quit, blah 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 blah. Time goes by. There is a break. She comes back to her mentors. They start warming up to her because now they know that she actually has some sort of chance to win this and survive. Um, but then Charon can just pop into their house for some reason. Are they maybe connected? Let me see. They're not like cousins or anything. Like I guess Achilles and Augustus are brothers by so they have the same dad, which is which is Ares, but Charon and the rest of them aren't connected in any way actually. So that's weird that he can just pop here and threaten her, but that's what happens. And then she comes back to school, she gets kissed by a guy, and a week later, she receives she receives, yes, sorry, I had a stroke. She receives she gets a box that she opens up. It's not addressed, it's or either it's not signed by anybody, and she opens it, and it's two hands and two eyes in the box. What's in the box? What's in the box? It's two hands and two eyes of the guy who kissed her. So now she's losing her mind even more than usually because obviously they're not eating, they're not sleeping. So she loses her mind. She thinks back to the threats she was given to give up, and in her pursuit of academic achievement and immortality at the end. And then there is a big party where she meets Zeus, who she thinks is her father. They're both under that assumption for some reason, but only because they look kind of similar in color. Like, especially the eye, the right eye, she cannot see, but it's like very light in color and it matches his. So wow, 2 plus 2 equals 14 for some reason, and they both think that they're related. Then also in this party, at this party, there's a lot of alcohol, drugs, play, I think, poker. They're playing cards with some sirens, I think. Alexis is playing, and then an orgy starts, but then she's whisked away by Augustus and Charon both, and they give her a blanket and a hoodie, which she accepts. Cool. And then there's another tropey thing at the school where the students go into this area where there's a lot of animals and they bond with the animals. So that's familiars, something like this. That's very tropey. That's very fan fiction-y. So that happens, and her protector is some kind of deformed dog, which she names Fluffy Junior, tribute to the dog she and Charlie had, because she's obviously not like other girls, and she's going to name that dog, deformed dog, Fluffy Junior. Awesome, awesome, awesome. One day before graduation, if she graduates, becomes fully Spartan, her mentors will get the title of a general. Both of them? I think both of them. And we have a situation because Patro, I didn't mention that for some reason, but it seemed obvious that Patro and Achilles are in a romantic relationship, and they hint at being interested, both of them interested in her, but she doesn't catch on, and I didn't catch on because you wanna see why? They treated her like shit for the first part, and then they treated her kindly, but that doesn't mean treating someone kindly doesn't mean that you're romantically interested in that person. So I didn't catch on that thing. Blah 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 blah. There's a masquerade party the day or the night before the graduation. So she goes along with Helen, who is a Chthonic heiress. So she's, I think, Aphrodite's and Ares's. No. Yes, no. Yes. Aphrodite and Ares' daughter. Then at the party she meets two men who force her into a dance that I can only describe as disgusting. Because they basically grope her and molest her in that dance. She doesn't know who these men are, and they hint at her being theirs. Disgusting. But she still doesn't know who they are. Then we have a siren of the Titan attack, but before Helen and Alexis can run away, they're teleported by somebody, whisked away. And she finds out that the threats that she experienced for her to give up on the school and give up on being immortal were from a heir to House Zeus that I will not pronounce his name. I don't really care. He wants to kill Alexis because he thinks that she's a child of Zeus, and if she were to become fully Spartan, she would also become the heir of House Zeus, and he wants to be the sole heir. So she leaves both Helen and Alexis tied up in the middle of the area where there's a lot of titans. So both of them will die, but Alexis manages to save them both. They come back to, I guess, the party or wherever the rest of the gods are, and she tries to kill this heir of House Zeus, and people find out that not only this guy was threatening her and the whole plot he had, but they also find out that Alexis' powers are chthonic. So her eyes went red. They find out that yes, she's from the chthonic side of the Spartans, so she cannot be daughter of Zeus because Zeus is Olympian. That's when she realizes that she killed a student. That one student that was killed by Charon wasn't actually killed by Charon. Like, he was finished by Charon, but she was the one who killed him accidentally, and she also killed her foster mother. So that's that. And then Hades and Persephone come forward and say that the only female child that ever existed, the other, because the besides Helen, was their long lost daughter Hercules. Did I mention how much I hate this book? So basically, their daughter, Hades and Persephone, had a daughter that was when she was a baby. They were together doing something on Earth, and they were attacked, and they thought that their child was killed, but it was Alexis all along, raised by abusive parents on Earth later on. And that's when Charon and Augustus step forward and say, "We're betrothed to Alexis, and she accepted our be be or not to be throw. She accepted our proposal. I'm having a stroke. She accepted their proposal by accepting the hoodie and the blanket. So that's how she automatically has to be married to those two guys. I hate this book, and I hate myself for reading it, and I hate myself for having a stroke trying to explain it. Unfortunately, no one can save her from this fate, not her real parents, not her mentors, and she, for a second, escapes from the party or whatever that's going on there to reunite with her brother. She explains all that happened, and then she gets ambushed by all the four men in the morning. So Charon, Augustus, Augustus, Gustus, Patro, Achilles, taken to Sparta, marries the guys, the Roman guy, and Charon. But then, when vows are over, the guests disappeared, but because there were guests for some reason, and so including her parents, and the two men put her on an altar and start molesting her, basically raping her, and people who read this book decided that this is so sexy. She didn't consent, so that's rape. And the book ends with Alex is bound forever to Augustus and Charon. She wants to get revenge against them both, and Achilles vows to Patro to bring back Alexis to them. That's the plot. Let's talk about the tropes. And I hated how reverse harem was handled here because she didn't choose anybody, so she never wanted this relationship. She was strict. Maybe Patro and Achilles relationship with her added to the mix could be good, but she didn't get what they meant with their hints. So I'm not counting that. The other one is forced. The other one, she's forced into it. The marriage, I don't like this. And another thing is the why choose trope. The basis of this book. That's how it was advertised. Why should she choose one of them when she can have both? But she didn't choose anybody. There was no choice involved. She was tricked into it. How can you advertise this book this way? How can you say that there is a clear why choose between two men trope if she didn't have a choice? She never made a choice. She was tricked into the relationship, she was tricked into the marriage. Why are we pretending that it's good that she was tricked? Huh? Why are we pretending that this is normal? Hated that. The style was terrible because people say, oh no, it's just a stream of consciousness. No, no, it's not. It's terribly written book, and if it tried to be stream of consciousness, it failed. Absolute wreckage, nothing to be found, and I'm going to talk about the writing style later. It's the next day. I'm losing my voice. I've lost my patience and there's no sun, so I'm also depressed. But let's talk about the mythology of this book. This is advertised as based on mythology. This is advertised as based on Hercules. It's supposed to be Hercules reimagined. It's not. I feel like the author doesn't know much myths, and you can see it everywhere you look in this book. The main problem I have is the fact that in this lore we have Greek gods that started in Sparta, and that's why they call themselves Spartans. They moved to Rome, and then they hid themselves away because there had been some instances where Titans killed some of the gods, and then they showed up after Titans showed up again in modern times or even in our future. So the question remains, if the influence of the Roman Empire was so great that these Spartan Greek gods are speaking in Latin exclusively, their names are Greek still, but you have the main character who is now Hercules. Why? That's a Latin version of Heracles, right? And Heracles was named such because, well, of course, Zeus had an affair. The Heracles was his son by a human, and they decided, or he decided, to name the child Heracles. As we can hear the Hera part in it, to kind of appease her, his wife, so Hera, right? Heracles makes sense. Then Romans came, they changed the names of some of the heroes, some of the gods, most of the gods, and then we have Hercules. Cool. Why is she Hercules here and not Heracles? Why is she named? Does that mean that Hercules never existed here in the story, like in the backstory of this story? It would seem so, but also at the same time, why is she the daughter of Hades and Persephone then, named Hercules, the Latin version of Heracles, so named after Hera, if she's not her stepmother or mother or whatever? Why? And then we take a look at the family lines, and it also doesn't make sense. Why is Artemis having kids if she's a virgin goddess? Not here, apparently. Why is Achilles son of Ares? We'll never know. And then when we consider, of course, myths, Greek myths, they were first said, then written, and they also change throughout time, which means that there are different versions of the same myths. Roman influence had a lot to say about changing the origin stories of some monsters and such, like with Medusa, for example. But when we consider Hades, he in some versions he never has kids because he's a god of the dead. So that's why, due to his connection with death, right? Because he's god of the dead, not of death, but still god of the dead. He hasn't got any kids in some versions, right? The main character's name doesn't make sense. The family lines don't make sense. It feels like the author has no idea about any of those gods from the Greek myths, from the mythology. I feel like this was a cheap trick to get people to read the book, because some people, oh, so this is the aspect I was talking about, why some people might like this book. So there was a hype on mythologies like 10 years ago with Percy Jackson, for example, and obviously Percy Jackson is fun, really like it, but it's mostly for kids, or at least teens, not really for adults. I mean, you can read it as an adult and still enjoy it, but the thing is that it, when it does touch on some dark stuff and such, it doesn't go very, specific, very much into detail. It's not very vivid, and that's why some people might pick this book up, because they feel like, oh, there's more gore, there's more killing, there's more blood, there's more dark things here. On the other hand, it's terribly written, so all those dark topics and, trauma and murder and such, it's not really well written here, so it feels like you're wasting your time. If you're looking for something dark here, you're wasting your time, because it's so poorly written that you won't even enjoy it. So I feel like the author, I've read this in one review, if I find it I will plaster it here, that the author just took a bunch of random names from Greek myths, put them in a hat, went like this, started taking out the characters' names and putting them whatever she felt like would serve her story. If you're looking for myths, if you're looking for retellings, if you're looking for references at least to specific myths or in general to Greek mythology, try a different book. Also, based on the author's words, she knows her way around the history of ancient Greece and ancient Rome, but she doesn't know much about the mythology. And she's asked about who's Apollo's twin, and she doesn't know. But I feel like this is a basic piece of knowledge that you might have learned in school, which is also funny because I think, from what I've heard, the second book of the series, Bonds of Hercules, there's in the very beginning there's a scene with Artemis talking with the main character, so she doesn't really know her myths, despite writing about them, or at least selling her book as a retelling or as a story based on Greek mythology. And the thing you need to know about characters is that they are so poorly described. It could be the style, but it also is how the characters are created. They're very one-dimensional, very shallow. The main character acts and speaks in this very edgy comments, like she's 12 but she's 18. She's also kind of a pick me when she's at the very beginning in the environment of her school, because other girls are thirsting over all those Spartan mats, and she's not like other girls because she doesn't like that, and she also likes math. We don't know much about Charlie, so the adopted brother, foster brother. He's not a character really. She's barely a character. The two men she ends up with, barely characters. Most of those people are barely characters. It's so poorly written. I am actually regretting opening this book, as I really didn't want to do that. I'm having flashbacks. The thing I would like to mention is that in the very beginning, while the foster family is still alive, so the parents, the abuse that the main character goes through is so poorly written. It's not deep, it's not shallow, as in described. It's not fully it's not shallowly described, it's not deeply described, it's just described in this very dramatic manner without proper respect for how terrible the situation is. It reminds me of how you would find 10 years ago those what stories where you had an alcoholic mother who would sell you to One Direction. This sort of situation, it's described, it's mostly for the dramatic element without the proper vocabulary to describe it, to make it sound serious. It sounds just absurd, like it's a caricature of the situation rather than the serious situation the main character is in. Another thing is at school when kids are watching some sort of a game, war game, something, and they find and we are introduced to Achilles, blah 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 blah. We have statistics of the characters of the Achilles. Instead of them being written in a dialogue or someone explaining something to another person, it's just written as a statistic in a video game. So you have name Achilles, nickname the Son of War, the Killer, the Beast of the Crimson Duo. I'm going to plaster it here so you know it's lineage, Spartan house, affiliation, height, weight, birthday, power. Why? Why is it written that way? If it's a book, it should be at least described from the main character's point of view, as in Alexis saw the statistics flash across the screen. The things she knew about was this. She didn't find it necessary to know his weight and height, but it flashed anyway, or it was included anyway. But instead you have just like as in you're taking notes, but it's a book. It should be, there's no work put into that, there's no effort to introduce this thing in a natural manner, and it really sets you up for the rest of the story. Let's read a piece of the main character being a little pick me. So we have the description of Achilles. The kids are talking. Are you seeing this? Do you see him? A male whispered. I know he's unreal, savage, and sexy. The class laughed. I debated if I should strangle myself now or later. This is so bad. Oh my god, it's him! No way, move so I can see. And another thing with Patro as well, you have the statistics written across the screen without any introduction that would sound natural. It's so bad, guys, but let's see the worst of the worst possible quotes that I found on my first read through the story. Are you guys ready for it? I am not. A sea of naked bodies engaged in obscenities. Everyone was jiggling in ways I never could have imagined. This is one of the better sentences in this book. Prepare yourself. If I'd known all it would take was kneeing him in the crotch then face, in parentheses, I would have done it ages ago. Another made up word. I was staring at his male thigh, crotch, region like a weirdo. I made a whale sound. He did not make one back. This is why I don't talk to people. They never understand me. Flack the flacking world. Life's a biatch like that. Genuine question, what in the fuckety fucker is wrong with you? I don't want to go back to that freaking Saki academy tomorrow, I practice in my mind. I knew you had it in you, bestie. Pussy power, crush the patriarchy. I was half naked, covered in scraps and streaks of sand, but I couldn't find the energy to care. Free the nipple and the lips. Vaginal? In parentheses. In conclusion, I hated the book and I hated the style the most. Besides the sentences I read, to the detriment of my own mental health, the book was poorly written in the sense that it tried to be very serious, very gloomy, dark, epic fantasy story with gods and monsters and all that, but the writing takes you out. The sentences, especially the thoughts of the main character, are so TikToky, so very brain rot kind of catchphrases you throw in TikTok comments. The patriarchy one was a great example of what I'm talking about. There's a problem with one-dimensional characters, and the backstory, the world of the story is so shallow when you think about it, because if there is enough Roman influence for those gods and their children to be speaking Latin, why is there nothing else? And they disappear when Rome. Where's the influence of Rome or Greece? Rome was super happy to have some Greek parts. Where is that? Where's the theater? Where's the is fighting all there is? Apparently in this world, yes, because there's fighting and there's fucking, and that's it. So that was an unpleasant read. I was actually super pissed when I read it. It was both the way mythology was treated, it was the way that I couldn't find any lovable characters, it was the style which made my eyes bleed, and the way this book was trying to take itself seriously while it really wasn't. And I'm not saying that you cannot read not serious books, because you can read books that are written lightly, that are written with this sense of humor that you are not supposed to take them seriously. But the difference is that those books don't take themselves seriously. This book is trying to be serious while being absolutely ridiculous garbage. I hate it so much. I thought about why is this book in particular such a great hit here in Poland, or at least why does it sell? It could be the translation, that it takes away some of the edginess and how cringe the writing is, because some of that must be lost in translation. If you want to read a good sex scene, then find a book with a good sex scene written. Go find a better book, and also a book that handles abuse in a more serious manner, in a more mature manner as well. The story is very generic. If the story is generic and the writing is shit and the character is barely a character and the sex scenes aren't really sex scenes, and you're wondering about the ethical standpoint of every single character and every single character is actually annoying you, then where's the pleasure in reading a book? What makes this story epic? At least it could be well written, and it's not. All in all, a waste of time. It wasn't the worst book I've ever read. Unfortunately, there are some pretty bad other books I had the displeasure of seeing with my two eyes, but I would not recommend it. Stick to Percy Jackson, guys. Bye!